What's up everybody, Matt Moran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of interesting news to go over this week. The first exciting announcement here is from Toyota. But before I get into the Toyota news, as I was editing this video, Chevy decided to come out with the Blazer, which is huge news. The Blazer is making a comeback here for the first time in many, many years. And so, as you can see, it's basically a Camaro front end on what is kind of like a smaller version of the Equinox. And so it looks pretty good. So basically this is the 2019 Chevy Blazer, that's its official name, and it's supposed to be slotted beneath the Equinox and Traverse as a smaller SUV for people that want like an Equinox-sized vehicle, but they only want 2 rows instead of 3, and they want something a little bit sportier and more personalized. So that's kind of the niche that the Blazer is attempting to fill. And it looks, actually, I think the front end looks better than it does on the Camaro, honestly, even though it's a very similar copy. Although it does look similar to some other stuff like the Hyundai Kona, where that LED strip up top isn't actual headlights, it's just an accent strip, and the actual headlights are where the fog lights look like they are there lower in the bumper. And so whenever you go to the inside of the vehicle as well, you'll see very, very similar to the Camaro. And I think it's actually kind of ingenious of them to kind of take those traits. I think Ford's considering doing something similar with the upcoming EV crossover that's supposed to have Mustang influence. But anyway, back to this Chevy here. The only disappointing thing is the engine choices. So you can either get it with a 2.5 liter inline 4-cylinder that makes only 193 horsepower and 188 pound-feet of torque, or you can go up to the 3.6 liter naturally aspirated V6, which says 305 horsepower and 269 pound-feet of torque, which is also okay, but a little underwhelming. You know, with Corvette or with Camaro styling, you would hope they would have some type of V8 or something like that. You know, I'm sure it wouldn't fit in this platform, but yeah, no V8 to be found. Maybe someday, but I highly doubt it. It would have been cool even if they had the new 2.7 liter turbo 4-cylinder from the new Silverado. That does 348 pound-feet of torque and would have been a lot more grunt to, you know, get this thing moving a little bit quicker. And they all come with a 9-speed automatic. And sadly, it looks like it's just a standard crossover. So this isn't any type of off-roading vehicle to compete with the Bronco or anything like that. It's just a cooler looking crossover. So anyway, these are available. They're going to be available in Premier trim, which has the more chrome blingy trim, or the RS model, which is the blacked out grille there. And anyway, these are going to be available in showrooms in early 2019. So yeah, it's going to be available with front wheel drive. That's what's standard. You can also get all wheel drive. There's 2 different systems. But yeah, it's kind of underwhelming, but let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. At the 24-hour Le Mans this past weekend, they announced that it's the president of Toyota's motorsports division, Gazoo Racing. They announced that they're going to be doing a road legal version of the TS050 hybrid race car, the same one that won Le Mans. So they're saying that's going to be going into production. They're going to do a hypercar from Toyota, which is just crazy. So they're quoted here as saying, "We started this project because we believe that creating a super sports car that delivers the same appeal as the TS050 hybrid greatly adds to Toyota's involvement in WEC. And at some point in the near future, customers will have a chance to get behind the wheel of this incredible machine and experience its astonishing power and driving performance." Which all sounds very promising, especially the near future part. Not sure what their definition of near future is, but I wouldn't hold my breath considering, you know, this Supra has been in development forever, and this thing's going to be even more advanced than the Supra. So, yeah, I'm not sure what their definition of near future is, but unless this is way further along than we know, I would not count on this thing showing up anytime, you know, in the next, you know, at least 2 or 3 years, probably much later than that. Anyway, so they're saying that, you know, whenever they do build this, it's most likely going to have the same engine as the race car as well, which means it would have a 1,000 horsepower, 2.4 liter twin turbocharged V6 engine, along with that hybrid electric component to give it that total 1,000 horsepower. But this also rounds out the 3 sports car promise that Toyota said a couple of years ago, because we have the 86, which has been renewed officially for a 2nd-gen version. We have the Supra, which is coming, and then we have this new hypercar, I guess. And so very exciting there, although it would have been nice to have another affordable sports car in the mix. but still very cool nonetheless. And they said that it will probably be based on the GR Super Sport concept that we saw at the Tokyo Auto Salon, I believe, back at the beginning of this year or late last year. And that's what it will most likely look like there. You know, obviously they'll have to work it over for a production version. There's a lot of elements in that concept that would not work in a production version, like the doors and stuff. So we'll have to see how that all pans out. But anyway, very exciting to hear that. Speaking of Toyota sports cars, though, and the Supra, we learned a new tidbit about the Supra this past week, and I don't know, the lead engineer, he's the same guy that said manual couldn't be done because the shifts couldn't be smooth enough with this much horsepower, and he said a bunch of other really bizarre things. So I don't know if he's trolling everyone or if he's just annoyed with questions or if everything he's saying is totally true in his mind. I don't know, but anyway, this was an interesting quote. He said he was at the 24-hour Le Mans as well, and he was quoted here saying that practicality and comfort were almost not considered when developing the Supra. Now, the keyword here is almost not considered. So it was considered, just as probably an afterthought or, you know, low on the priority list. So, if you were hoping that the Supra would be a great daily driver, you know, comfortable, maybe have some nice tech from the BMWs and stuff like that, I wouldn't be so sure. I have a hard time imagining this would be, you know, even less comfortable than like a BRZ or an 86, which were very daily drivable cars. But yeah, I'm not sure what they mean by not thinking about practicality. Maybe it won't have cup holders or something. I have no clue. But anyway, that was a strange thing because you would think people, I mean, the original Supra was a grand touring car and was very comfortable and, you know, pretty luxurious for its time and stuff. So this is a little weird. They're going full on hardcore sports car with it, which is great. But you can also have practicality and comfort as well. That's what these adaptive suspensions are all about. And, you know, you can kind of have your cake and eat it too with a lot of these vehicles. So not sure, but we'll have to see how that pans out. He also said a higher performing version of the Supra is also likely later on down the line. Not a huge surprise there either. But anyway, interesting to hear all that. Some really good news from another sports car here is Mazda USA is officially confirmed we are getting that enhanced Miata here in the States for the 2019 model year. The one that has the worked over 2-liter Skyactiv motor that now has a 7,500 RPM redline, 181 horsepower, and 151 pound-feet of torque. And I talked about this last week already, but just some of the bullet points here that the US version of the press release here had. It has, you know, the improved engine internals, obviously. It also says it has a larger diameter exhaust manifold for the opening, which helps it to breathe better. It also has a new exhaust system, which helps it to breathe better. They also say it has richer sound quality, whatever that means. So that's great to hear, though. They also said there's going to be a slightly quicker final drive ratio on the automatic version, which should help it feel a little more sporty, although the manual has the same ratios, they're saying. There's also the new telescoping steering wheel, new black 17-inch wheels, easier to open doors. I don't know what was hard to open about the current Miata doors, but easier to open. There's revised cup holders as well and seat levers, and there's a new brown canvas soft top as well, which you can see there in one of the 2 pictures that they you know, posted up with this press release. So they deliberately didn't show the front end, which gives me hope that maybe they tweaked the headlights or there's still something they're hiding about the front end of the Miata there, which would be nice. You know, if maybe got some headlights similar to like the new Mazda 6 or something, you know, some interesting new elements within them or something would be cool. We'll have to wait and see. But even if it's identical on the outside, that engine is going to be wonderful. I can't wait to drive this car. That sounds like an absolute blast. And anyway, these are going to be available this fall, so not too much longer to wait for them either. Another vehicle that was revealed this past week was the 2019 BMW 8 Series, debuted with, first off, the M850i xDrive version, which is all-wheel drive, of course, and it looks really good in these final official pictures. There's a few pictures that leaked out that didn't look great, but this looks really good, actually, very similar to the concept. So you can have it with an optional carbon fiber roof, and you can really make it pretty sporty. The numbers this thing puts out are pretty impressive. It uses the new 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8 engine with 500 123 horsepower, 553 pound-feet of torque. It has an 8-speed Steptronic Sport automatic transmission, but it'll do 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds, which for the non-M version, this is just the M, package, but this isn't the full-on M8. So 3.6 seconds is already supercar fast. That's really impressive. Top speeds electronically limited to 155. It's going to have standard active exhaust as well, which will change depending on the driving mode as far as volume level and stuff. It has all the usual BMW tech on the inside. You have those new the new gauge cluster, which looks really cool there. The new interior design that we saw first in the X5 a week or two ago, and now we're seeing it here in this as well. Other tech here, it'll have laser light headlights, although I don't think those are still legal in the States, but very advanced headlamps. It has a night vision system as well, like other BMWs, and this one can identify heat-emitting objects and use the headlights to illuminate those objects better that it detects are animals or whatever, pedestrians, things like that. As far as luxury, you can see it's very luxurious on the inside. Like all the other brand new BMWs, looks really cool. It's going to have a standard 16-speaker Harman Kardon stereo, but there's an optional 1,375 watt Bowers & Wilkins Diamond sound system. It's also available. So very luxurious in addition to being very powerful, and having the all-wheel drive, so it's all-weather capable as well. These are going to be on sale in the fall, but no pricing has been announced yet, but anyway, very cool to see that. Volvo has revealed the 2019 S60 this week, and this is going to be the first vehicle of theirs to be built in the United States at their new plant in South Carolina, which is very cool as well. Looks like a smaller version of the S90, basically, but looks really good still. I absolutely still love those new headlamps that all these Volvos have, and the new tail lamps that they all kind of have. It's all basically the same look for these sedans, but it looks very good, and I think it is still aging well, even though it's a couple of years old now. There's going to be 4 different versions. There's a T5 version, which is a front-wheel drive, 250 horsepower version. The T6 is all-wheel drive with a turbo and supercharged 4-cylinder with 316 horsepower. And then there's the T8 plug-in hybrid version, which is all-wheel drive as well. It has 400 horsepower and 485 pound-feet of torque. So that T5 base model is starting at $36,795. So pretty affordable there for, a pretty nice, large, pretty luxurious vehicle. Obviously, there's higher trims, which will get more expensive. Then there's the T6 version. That starts at $41,295. And then that T8 version really jumps up because of those batteries and all the electrical tech. $55,395 for that version. The T6 version can also be had through the Care by Volvo subscription service. And that is $755 a month and includes insurance and maintenance and all that stuff. Which doesn't seem like too bad of a deal, actually. And then the last model, the 4th one here, is the S60 T8 Polestar engineered version, which was teased last week, and I talked about that in last week's weekly update here. But anyway, that one has an extra 15 horsepower for 415 total and 494 pound-feet of torque in that one. And they're saying that model is only going to be available through the Care by Volvo program exclusively, at least for the first model year. You won't be able to buy the Polestar version. You have to subscribe to it, which I think is still kind of silly. You should at least give people the option, but that's what they're doing. And they also said it's going to be in extremely limited quantities for that Polestar version too, so it'll be tough to get. But anyway, they're going to start arriving in the last part of this year. But anyway, cool to see that. Mercedes has revealed a refresh here for the 2019 SLC43, which continues to live on. Hasn't been completely redone since 2012, just little refreshes here and there. Anyway, so it gets the same basic power bump as all the other new 43 models for 2019 here, which means the twin-turbo V6 now has 385 horsepower, and the torque's still the same at 384 pound-feet. You can see it has these new standard LED headlamps, which are very nice and great that they're standard now. Also, dual-zone auto climate control is standard as well. Yeah, otherwise, there's some very minor changes, but still a very dated interior, sadly, from the last-gen, Mercedes stuff from, 5 years ago. But other than that, looks pretty cool there on the outside at least. Pricing and on sale dates haven't been revealed yet for this, but should be available fairly soon, I'm guessing. So cool to see that. Jeep's European division this past week has shown off many more pictures of the refreshed Renegade that we'll be getting here in the States as well. But for some reason, the US version of Jeep has not shown the US pictures yet. So these ones still have the clear side markers and a few other European things, but basically it's going to be the same for the US version. You can see it has the headlights from the Wrangler with the halos there. there, and it's just nice to see more pictures. There was only like 2 pictures revealed earlier a couple of weeks ago. So now we see, you know, it's basically, going to be very minor changes, you know, just a reworked front bumper, different grille a little bit, those headlamps, different taillights in the back, and that's basically it as far as the exterior changes. On the inside, there's basically no changes. It doesn't seem like, at least from first glance there. Same, 8.4-inch Uconnect touchscreen, which is great. You know, it doesn't really need much. I think it looks really good and, has a lot of features already. But anyway, cool to see that, especially, those new headlamps really look good there on the Renegade. There's no info as far as, we know there's a hybrid version of this in the works that we've seen spied running around in the past, but no info on that. For Europe, they're just saying they're going to get a bunch of tiny little engines that we won't get here in the States, and they're going to get a couple diesels as well, which we also won't get. So we'll have to wait, for the US reveal for all of our details. But anyway, interesting to at least see that new look. Another vehicle that only the rest of the world is going to be getting, except for us, is the Suzuki Jimny, which is all new for the first time since 1998. Talk about an outdated vehicle. I think the Nissan Frontier is bad, and that, has been around since, I think, 2006. So this 1998, that's impressive. So anyway, it's this cool little, like Jeep type thing. And I think over there, it's only around $18,000 for in Europe and the rest of the world there. And I mean, at that price, if they could bring it over here for that price, I think this would sell really well. It's a shame that Suzuki isn't in the States anymore, because I think something like this could actually kind of steal some thunder from the Wrangler. Obviously, this is a little more bare bones, a little more cramped. Obviously, it's like a K car basically, but would be very cool. Anyway, so for those of you in the rest of the world, I believe these are going to be available, in the not too distant future here, the next few months. But anyway, cool to see that. Mercedes has also shown some official spy shots that they actually took, not really spy shots, but of a camouflaged version of their EQC electric crossover that they're working on here. So it's based on the GLC, but just a fully electric version, and clearly has a much different exterior appearance though as well. Looks like a futuristic GLC basically here, and it looks really good so far, although the back end almost looks like a Porsche Macan or something with those tail lamps. We'll have to wait till the final version to see, after the camo is pulled off. It looks fairly far along, so I'm hoping this will be ready for a reveal, late this year or early next maybe. But anyway, interesting to see that. There's several partnerships this past week. Audi and Hyundai have announced a partnership here to work on hydrogen fuel cell vehicles together. Their partnership here, they want to accelerate the development of these vehicles to make them more affordable, because they, like many other manufacturers, believe that hydrogen is the truly sustainable way of the future, not electric vehicles that are powered by coal plants and, all that type of stuff. This is actual, renewable hydrogen. It's much easier, quicker to refill. You don't have to wait for any recharge times, but still zero emissions, and I think is the better way to go. And so hopefully they can change this thinking. Tesla's kind of hyped up all the pure just plug-in electric stuff, but I think the hydrogen is the way to go, and Audi and Hyundai seem to agree, and they're working on this. So the partnership allows them to access the other person's intellectual property and share components to help them both produce hydrogen cars more affordably and kind of bring those costs down, and also allow them to make higher volume vehicles, without losing quite as much money. So this is just one of the latest partnerships. We already know that GM and Honda have partnered together on hydrogen stuff to also share costs, and BMW and Toyota are working on this together as well. So all these companies are behind the scenes working on hydrogen, trying to find ways to make it, more appealing and affordable for people. But that's also going to come down to just getting hydrogen stations out there so that it'll be as convenient as electric charging stations are these days, which is going to be an uphill battle, but we'll have to see. Another partnership that was announced this past week was Porsche has bought 10% of Rimac, the supercar company, the EV supercar company. And so Porsche is really interested in Rimac's EV tech. These Rimacs, I think the new one they said is going to have like 2,000 horsepower, 250 some mile per hour top speed, very, very fast vehicles. And I think Porsche wants in on that. And so they're buying a stake in the company, and they're going to kind of work together, which is really cool. And hopefully it gives Rimac some cool resources as well, possibly. But anyway, very interesting to hear that. Also, Volkswagen and Ford are in talks to partner together on commercial vehicles primarily. And I think this is, again, going towards the EV stuff and wanting to, I don't think either of them have the entire commercial market covered, and they want to help each other out with that, but also bring some new tech, to the commercial market. And so They're also reporting, though, according to Reuters, that they're going to be having a few different projects that this partnership could encompass, including a number of different areas. So not just commercial stuff, maybe some other stuff as well. But anyway, interesting to hear that. Some other Ford news, not supercar related just yet, but still thought it was cool to mention, is that Ford this past week announced how they bought the Michigan Central Station, the old train station there in Detroit, which is really cool, and they plan to renovate the inside of it to include offices for more than 2,500 Ford employees, another 2,500 supplier and other partner employees that they have, as well as apartments on the top 2 floors, which will probably be pretty plush and expensive, and also some retail spaces on the first floor and some public area to have, local retailers and restaurants in there. They want to promote entrepreneurship with this new building, which is really cool. As someone who loves vintage stuff, it's really cool that instead of putting up some big new building, they're keeping an icon of Detroit alive, and it's just a beautiful building in my opinion. And so to fix it up and kind of bring it back to its former glory, and also take it into the future as well, is going to be really cool to see. And so this is going to be primarily like their headquarters for their mobility solutions division, and creating the city of tomorrow. So not just like car stuff, but their bike development and patents and all these other things that Ford wants to work on to become a mobility company and not a car company. Which some of that stuff's a little iffy to me, but still really cool. That they're going to be working on all that in there. In other Ford news, Automotive News this past week is reporting that Lincoln has trademarked the Corsair name, and it's going to be the new name for the MKC, supposedly, according to a dealer meeting that happened last month. That's what the dealers are reporting, that's the new name for the MKC for the new next-gen version, which is coming in 2020 as a 2021 model year vehicle. They said the name could change still, but that is the plan, is to call it the Corsair, which I think is a pretty good name, and I'm really happy to see that Lincoln's going to normal names for all their vehicles, and good sounding names at that. So anyway, cool to hear that. Another naming thing that came off this past week is AutoGuide is reporting that the LM name was trademarked for Lexus, including LM350 and LM300h. And so the LM sounds like it would be the new like high-end crossover that Lexus is planning, and they have the concept this past year. And the only interesting thing though is the 300 numbering, because that's a low number that usually signals that it's a V6 in other Lexus products at least. And so with the flagship like the LS, that's like an LS500. So I would expect like an LM500, not an LM300. So this could be something else, or maybe they just will have a small engine version for some reason, or that'll be a base model or something. I don't know, but anyway, interesting to hear that. And we have lots of spy shots this past week. Many are from my spy photographer, Brian Williams, but I also have several that were sent in by you guys, and I'm always appreciative whenever you guys send me in some spy photos, either on the Facebook fan page or through email. All that stuff's in the description if you ever want to send stuff that you happen to see out there and can safely take pictures of. So anyway, the first thing from Brian Williams here, though, is some actual video clips of the mid-engine Corvette doing some 0 to 60 runs, and so I'll let you hear that, and we'll come back and talk about it. So, as you can hear, it doesn't sound quite as crazy as like a ZR1 or anything like that. It definitely sounds like a twin-turbo V8 with a dual clutch. You can hear those shifts getting banged off real quickly. And it has a little bit of a muffled sound signature, what you would hear from a turbocharged V8. Does sound good, though. This could be the 4.2-liter twin-turbo V8, the smaller one, since I think the larger twin-turbo V8 isn't quite as far along in development, and I think that one would probably sound a little crazier, but who knows. Anyway, interesting to see that, and very cool to hear that little glimpse of the new mid-engine Corvette. Another very sweet vehicle that was spied was Mike J emailed me this spy shot of the Shelby GT500 that was in Phoenix, Arizona. And the lighting on this picture really shows you the cool lines of the GT500 with that hood that raises up, the fenders that kind of come out a little bit there with those little slits by the headlights. Just looks really good there. That's an awesome shot that he got. So huge thanks to him for sending that over. And another Ford that was spied, Matthew Dvorsky, sent me in some pictures here of the 2020 2020 Explorer, which was spy testing in LA. And it doesn't really show us anything new since the previous Explorer spy shots I showed a few weeks ago. But it is cool to see that it's being tested now outside of Detroit. Now, we're in LA getting testing done here. So hopefully, the Explorer, the new one, isn't too much further away, and so anyway, cool to see that. Back to some official spy photos here. The Mercedes-AMG A35 was spied thanks to Brian Williams photographers there, and so this is going to be, now we know there's going to be a regular A-class sedan that we also will be getting here in the States. It'll be the new entry model. The CLA is going to be the sportier coupe version, and so that's the way that's going to the whole thing's going to work out here. And so this A35 is going to be the new base AMG. It's going to use a reworked version of the turbo 4-cylinder from the CLA 45 or the A45 elsewhere, also the GLA 45, but in this tune it'll have about 300 horsepower, and it's aimed to compete with the Golf R. That's kind of what they're going for, and the rest of the world's going to get a hatchback, so that's why the Golf R competition makes sense. Here for the States, though, we're only going to get the sedan, supposedly, according to this report here from Brian Williams. And so, yeah, but other things here, it's actually going to still do 0 to 60 in about 4.5 seconds, they're saying. It will still have all-wheel drive as well, and could be priced as affordably as $40,000. Could be a little more. I have a hard time believing an AMG Mercedes could go for that little money, but we'll have to see. There's still going to be an A45 coming, and that, we'll obviously probably have a CLA 45, GLA 45 versions as well. But they're saying that could do over 400 horsepower and do 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds for that one. The 35 probably won't look quite as aggressive, just be kind of like, what you see with the C43 versus the C63, where you have, mild and hot, and actually Brian Williams also had a rendering here that he made of what it could look like, just to give you guys an idea, but that is not official, that is just a illustration. But anyway, cool to see that. Also, the Audi RS7 was spied lapping the Nürburgring, the new version, and there's camo on the front there, which actually highlights the biggest change from this front bumper, which is these new triangular cuts in the front bumper for cooling there, which look really cool. And that's kind of a new thing that we haven't seen on other RS models so far on these new ones. Otherwise, the rest of the car is very unfinished looking. We have tacked on fender flares, which aren't production ready. The bumper in the back is the same as a regular A7, just hacked away to fit those oval exhaust tips. But it'll most likely use the same 4-liter twin-turbo V8 engine that we've seen in all the other RS models coming, the RS Q8, all that type of stuff. But anyway, very cool to see that. Also, a crazier BMW M4 GTS was spied running around, and I don't know what this thing is, because I thought the M4 GTS was like the final version of the M4, the ultimate version already, but now we see this one with even more advanced aero, very advanced. We have like cuts in the fenders, on the top of the fenders there, that huge rear spoiler. I almost have a hard time believing this is even a road car, but it's out on the road testing. So you would think if it was a race car, they'd only be testing it on the track or something, but yeah, I'm not sure what to make of that. Obviously, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on what you think they might be going for with that. But anyway, interesting to see that. Also, thanks to Greg Gould, who sent me in these couple of pictures of these hybrid BMWs testing. This was in the States here, and he says, they're hybrid because you can see on the back there, it says hybrid test vehicle on the rear bumper. So clearly, this is definitely, hybrid versions of what looks like the new 3 Series and the new X5. We know that, hybrid versions of both of those are coming, probably plug-in hybrids, and maybe even some regular hybrids as well. But cool to see those continuing to test there. Also, back to some official spy photos here. The 2019 Honda Pilot was spied this past week, and so what we can see first off, looks like it's not going to change too much, but could get some LED elements in the headlamps, and the grille could have a similar type of shape to the new Accord, the same type of large chrome trim. That kind of looks like what it's hiding underneath the camo there, but still hard to say until obviously the camo is taken away. Also, some tweaked taillights in the back are to be expected. And one version actually had a plug port there on the front fender, which means there's probably going to be a plug-in hybrid version coming. Like every other new vehicle being developed these days, they're all going to have plug-in hybrid versions, so this should not be a surprise to anyone. And yeah, having a plug port there on the front fender is going to be very commonplace in the 2020s on just about every single new vehicle you see. It's just the way things are going. So anyway, interesting to see that. that. Also, the 2020 Hyundai Sonata was spied for the first time this past week, which really looks very different than, you know, previous Sonatas. So it looks wider, more curvy than it has in the past, a little bit bigger as well. Yeah, you know, I don't know. The camo really does a good job of disguising, you know, what like the headlights are going to look like, if they will be oval units or something different. But yeah, it looks fairly far along though, and it's been testing alongside the competition, which means it's most likely being benchmarked and, you know, compared. So I'm guessing the development is pretty far along if they're doing that. You know, the car is mostly finalized. If they're already comparing it with the others. So yeah, should be ready at least for the 2020 model year next year. So anyway, interesting to see that. The last batch of spy photos this week was the 2020 Range Rover Evoque was spied again. And we've seen spy shots in the past. Looks a little sleeker. It's going to borrow some styling cues from the Velar, I think, be a little bit smoothed out. But still basically the same size and, you know, proportions as previous Evoques. And so we first get a new look at the interior. First time we've seen this new interior on the Evoque, which again looks very similar to the other larger Range Rovers, you know, with the dual screen setup, but even a little more advanced here, it seems, for the Evoque version. And looks really cool. It looks pretty far along as well. Although, you know, it does have analog gauges there for the driver's gauges, so that could either just be because it's a lower trim version, or you know, it could just still be a temporary thing or something. But anyway, this should be available sometime early next year is the guess. It could be available that soon, maybe a little bit later, we'll have to see. But yeah, it's cool to see they're going to be offering this high-end stuff in the lower end Evoque as well, at least as an option maybe. But anyway, yeah, very cool to see that. But that's it for all the news this week, guys. So let me know your thoughts and everything in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Take care.